Hi everyone, welcome to Mindful Crafts and More. I'm Katrina. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I hope you take a look at this video and others, and if you're inspired, consider subscribing. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for a bit. So in today's video, what I'd like to do is a very brief tutorial on how to do a stitch pattern that I mentioned in my recent videos where I am discussing a temperature make-along project. In those videos, I told you guys about a stitch pattern called the linen stitch. Actually, it's known as the linen stitch, the moss stitch, the granite stitch, or woven. That's a lot of names. However, the thing you need to know is it's a very easy stitch pattern to remember, and I think it will really highlight the different colors that are going to be used in the temperature project make along. If you take a look here, you'll see that the piece that's on the top is a solid color. This one I made using Caron Simply Soft. And even though it's one color, you can see that this stitch pattern gives a very beautiful texture to the fabric that you make. The one on the bottom is done with Red Heart Super Saver yarn in various colors. And in addition to the texture that it provides using this stitch pattern, it also gives a pop of color to the various colors that are used. And so it gives really, really beautiful fabric, and you can use it to your advantage depending on if you only want texture or if you want texture and that pop of color. So the things that you will need to learn this stitch pattern are worsted weight yarn in several colors, an H hook, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. I will be right back in just a moment and we'll get started on learning this new stitch. Okay, so I'm using Red Heart yarn and an H hook. We're going to start by making a slip knot, and we're going to make an even number of chains. I'm going to start with a chain of 16. Okay, so here is my chain of 16, and if you look at the front, you can see it looks like a series of stacked V's. If I turn it to the back, then it looks like a series of bumps. We're actually going to work into the back portion, these back bumps, and we're going to begin by putting a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Okay, so this is the first one here, and this is the second one here. So we're just going to go under that bump, yarn over, pull a loop out, yarn over, and pull through both. That's a single crochet. We're going to go into each bump across and do the same thing. Go in the bump, yarn over, pull a loop out, yarn over, pull through both. Okay, so just keep doing that all the way across. Now I do tend to use my nail to kind of hold the yarn, and it just makes it a little easier for me. Okay, we are nearing the end. Because we started in the second chain from the hook and we did an initial chain of 16, we will end up with 15 single crochets. Okay, so this should be my last one here. And then we're going to check just to make sure we have the right number. Okay, so I'm going to pull this loop up bigger and we're just going to count to make sure we have 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so we have the right number of single crochets. Now, that was just a set of single crochets. This is what we chose to use as our foundation for this particular stitch. You could have done a foundation single crochet, which is a different stitch. It's a little bit more complex, and I just thought I would just do the basics for the purposes of this video. But if you know how to do foundation single crochet, you could choose to do that. Another option is when you're doing the moss, linen, or granite stitch is you could choose to just do the chains and then begin the granite stitch right off the very beginning from those series of chains. And so for my preference, I chose to do the single crochet on the first row, but you don't necessarily have to. All right, so now what I'm going to do is the next row, and I'm going to stay with this color for now, okay? So this is going to be actually the first portion of the granite, moss, or linen stitch. We're going to chain one and we're going to turn our work. All right, we're going to put a single crochet in the very first stitch because that chain one technically did not count as a stitch, okay? But it is a chain one. So that will make sense in a few minutes. So we're going to put a single crochet right in this stitch here, and we're going to chain one. We're going to skip the next stitch, put a single crochet in the next, and chain one. And we're going to repeat that. Skip the stitch, single crochet in the next, chain one. Skip a stitch, single crochet in the next, chain one. Skip, single crochet, chain one. And continue to do that all the way down. Until we get to the last and put a single crochet in the very last stitch. Okay, chain one. All right, so now you should have half the number of single crochets that then you started with before in the beginning. So we should have 8 single crochets. All right, so we're going to go back the other way, and I'm going to stick with this color again as I do the next row. Excuse me. So now I did chain one. I'm going to turn. If you look closely, you can see that where the chain ones are, it's a little bit more open. Okay, so there's a chain one right here. If you could see that carefully, can you see? This is the stitch, this is the chain one. So we're gonna put a single crochet in the chain one space, not in the single crochet. And then we're gonna chain one. We're gonna skip over the single crochet and put another one in the space and chain one. And you're just gonna continue to do that the whole row. Only put single crochets in the chain one space, and remember to chain one after each stitch. Okay. Now when we get to the end, remember I told you that we were putting it in the chain one space, but we're also putting it in the chain one. So this is a stitch, but right here is the chain one that we did right as we were going back the other way. So to keep our edges nice and even and straight, I put a single crochet in this very stitch right here. And sometimes it's a little difficult to do in the beginning, but you get used to it and you just go under both of those loops, yarn over, pull out, yarn over, and pull through. And it gives you a very nice edge. Okay, so that's why I do it that way. Now, what I want to do is show you how you would do if you were making a temperature project and your temperature range um, directed you to use a different color for that particular day. What you do is you kind of go back to the uncompleted single crochet from the previous row. So I'm going to pick these loops back up that I just pulled this yarn through, and I'm going to pull the yarn out, and then I'm going to grab my new color. I'm going to put that color over my yarn and pull it through. All right. And so I just completed that single crochet with my new color, basically. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to do a chain one. Now I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did on that last row, putting a single crochet in every single chain one space and a chain one afterwards. And you're just going to do that all the way across. The chain one spaces are very easy to go into. So if you find yourself having a hard time going into the stitch, then you might not be going into the chain one space. Now we're at the end. And so once again, this is a single crochet. And then right here, this stitch that's kind of leaning toward me, that is my chain one that I did at the beginning of the row before. So I'm going to go under the front portion of that chain one and the back portion of that chain one. And again, sometimes you have to work it, but it's really not that difficult, and it usually will slide onto your hook. Okay, and if you can see that, it makes for just a very beautiful and nice even stitch there. Okay. Okay, so let's try that again. Chain one, turn your work, and you put single crochets only in the chain one spaces, followed by a chain. This is a very beautiful stitch, and it really does bring out the different colors that you are adding to it when you choose to use different colored yarns. And it makes just beautiful texture as well as color. Okay, so I'm at the end and I'm just picking up that chain from that beginning chain one, and there you are. So that's the linen stitch. I hope that this helps you to be more comfortable with the stitch. I really enjoy it, and my project I think is just going to be just great. And I hope you guys decide to come along with me on this journey to make this temperature project for 2021. If you have any questions about the stitch or about the temperature make along, please leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I will see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.